All right, welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are rolling up our sleeves and doing some serious spring cleaning. But we're not, organizing a closet. We are trying to organize the fundamental architecture of the human mind.
That's a great way to put it, a very apt metaphor. We're looking at a really pivotal moment in syntactic theory, digging into this very dense text on functional categories and the minimalist critique.
And reading it, honestly, it felt a bit like watching a controlled demolition. We're taking these structures that linguists have used for decades. I mean, things drawn on chalkboards, put in every textbook, and we're asking a really expensive question.
Do we actually need this?
Exactly. Is it just clutter?
Right. The mission here is pretty radical. The core proposal is to eliminate the category of agreement, or entirely from the grammar.
Which is huge. I mean, for so long, drawing syntax trees meant you were drawing these AGRP nodes everywhere. You had agreement subject, agreement object. It was just standard procedure.
Right.
And now we're saying, well, just cut it.
Cut it. And not just for some, aesthetic reason. It's because of what the text argues is a fundamental design flaw in the whole concept of agreement.
Okay, let's unpack that. Because when we talk about functional categories, we usually mean things like tense or complementizers or determiners. Those seem pretty essential. We need those.
We do, absolutely. And here's the crucial distinction the text makes. Think about tense. Tense has instructions for the interface. It tells you when something happened. It has real semantic weight. It's interpretable.
Right. If I say John walked, that little ed gives me actual information about time. It changes the reality of the sentence.
Precisely. Or a determiner like the. It tells you about reference. Are we talking about a specific book or just any old book? These categories actually talk to the systems outside of pure syntax. They have meaning.
They're the furniture in the room?
They're the furniture. You can sit on them. They have a purpose.
But agreement.
Agreement, the text says, does not. It's made up of purely what they call formal features. It is minus interpretable. If I say he walks versus they walk, that S doesn't change the nature of the walking. It doesn't change the time. It has no impact on the truth condition. It's just matching.
It's the bureaucracy of language. It's just paperwork.
It is. The text argues that T, C, and D are the furniture, but agra is just a sticker on the floor telling the furniture where to stand. We invented it for purely theory internal reasons, just to have a geometric spot for features to be checked.
So the whole argument is, if it doesn't mean anything to the sound system or the meaning system, the interfaces, why should it exist in the syntax at all?
That is the core proposal. If agra has no interface interpretation, it shouldn't be a node in the tree. We have to eliminate the middleman.
Okay, but this is where it gets, technically tricky. Because if we fire the middleman, if we fire aggro, the object agreement node, where does the object go?
Right. Think about the old model. The object had to move up to this special aggro node to get its case checked. In a sentence like, I saw him, him is accusative. It needed a place to get that accusative stamp.
It had to go to the DMV to get its license stamp.
Exactly. But if we close the DMV, if there's no aggro office, who stamps the ticket?
The text suggests we don't need a whole separate office.
We don't. The job gets taken over by the light verb, little v.
Little v, that's the functional head sitting right on top of the main verb, right? The
Yeah.
sort of causative part of the action.
Correct. So the proposal is we don't need another room for agreement. The light verb itself can handle it. It takes on the strong features that force the movement.
But wait a second, the light verb already has a job? It's hosting the external argument, the subject. Isn't it already crowded? How is there room for the object if the subject is already sitting there?
It is crowded. And this is where the text introduces a mechanism that really changes the geometry of the tree. It's called the outer specifier.
Okay, the outer spec. Paint me a picture here, because specifier is usually just that one seat to the left of the head.
Imagine the light verb node is a platform. The subject sits on that platform. The proposal is that if V has a strong feature, say a need to check the object's case, it doesn't build a new platform above itself. It just extends the one it already has. It creates an extra slot, an outer specifier, attached to the same node.
Ah, so instead of moving to a new house, we're just building an extension onto the existing one.
Exactly that. Or think of it like a bus. The subject is in the driver's seat. The object needs to get on. Instead of building a whole second bus called aggro, the light verb just opens the side door, the outer spec. The object moves up and lands right there.
So now the subject and the object are both, in a sense, riding on the light verb node.
Yes. And now the object is in the checking domain of the verb. It gets its case checked, and we didn't need an aggro node to do it.
That does feel a lot more efficient. But the text brings up Holmberg's generalization here. That was always the big defense for keeping aggro around, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. Holmberg's generalization is this pattern you see in Scandinavian languages where, roughly, the object can only move if the verb moves first.
And the old argument was, see, they move together. That proves there's an aggro node they're both aiming for.
Right. They used to say, we need aggro to explain this dependency. But our source here is pretty dismissive of that.
Yeah, it basically calls it circular reasoning.
It does. It argues that using Holmberg to prove aggro exists is just assuming your conclusion. If we switch to this outer spec model, we can explain the movement without any circular logic. The object moves because V has a strong feature. Of course, it looks related to the verb's position. It's attached to it.
So we're not losing any explanatory power, we're just losing the clutter. And this applies to adjectives too, right? Like in John is intelligent.
Yes, exactly. Think about that word order. Why John is intelligent and not is intelligent John. John has to move up. Before, you'd assume there was some agreement adjective node pulling it up.
A special adjective checkpoint.
A dedicated checkpoint, but now, no. The adjective intelligent itself has the strong feature. It creates an outer spec. John moves directly into the adjective's orbit. Again, cut the middleman.
Okay, I love the idea of cleaning house, but every time you move furniture around, you suddenly run into a new problem. There's a big technical hurdle here with movement.
The closeness problem.
Right. Syntax is like a game of checkers. You can't just jump over pieces. There are rules about shortest move. If the subject is in the light verb position and the object is below it, how does the object jump over the subject to get to that outer spec? Doesn't the subject block it?
This is a classic intervention effect. And yes, technically, the subject is closer to the target than the object is, so it should block the move.
But obviously it doesn't. We can say, I saw him, the object gets checked. So how does this new theory get around that?
This is where the critique gets really brilliant, I think. It forces us to redefine what closeness even means. The text refines the concept of equidistance.
Equidistance. Okay. Break that down for me.
So in the old system, with all the aggro nodes, the subject was definitely closer to the landing site and the object was blocked. But if we get rid of aggro and we use this multiple specifier idea, just look at where the subject and object end up.
They end up attached to the same head, the light verb.
Exactly. They're in the same minimal domain. And the text argues that if two positions are in the same minimal domain, they are equidistant from any other point in the tree.
Oh, I see. So it's like if my brother and I are in the same room, neither of us is really closer to the front door in a way that matters for the rules. We're both just available.
Precisely. Because the subject and the object's new landing spot are neighbors on the same node, the subject doesn't block the object from moving in. And crucially, once the object lands in that outer spec, it doesn't block the subject from moving further up.
Further up to tense, you mean?
Right. The subject still has to go to tense to become the subject of the whole sentence. Since the subject and object are now equidistant, the object doesn't act as a barrier. The subject can just hop right past it.
That completely solves the traffic jam.
It does, and it leads to a much simpler definition of closer. Basically, closer just becomes about command. If you're in the same domain, you're accessible. It strips away all that complicated geometry.
Okay, so we've cleared out the agreement nodes. We've established that existing words like verbs and tense can have these strong features that create extra parking spots, these outer specs. But now we have to talk about maybe the weirdest word in English.
The expletive.
There. As in, there is a man in the room.
The word that seems to mean existence but carries no content at all.
And the text points out this very strict rule about there. It can only appear in the subject position. It can sit in the spec of tense. But you never see there in the object position. You can't say, I saw there a man. It just crashes.
Right. And for a long time, that was just a descriptive fact, a rule of thumb. Don't put there in the object position. But this analysis actually explains why the system crashes if you try. And it all comes down to features.
This was the part of the text that really made me lean in. Because there is like a ghost in the machine.
It is. There has no semantic meaning. It's uninterpretable. In technical terms, it's just a determiner feature, a D feature. That's all it is.
But a sentence can't survive if it has uninterpretable junk left over at the end, can it?
No. That's the principle of full interpretation. Everything at the end has to mean something. So there is a problem. It has this meaningless D feature that has to be eliminated somehow.
And how does it do that? It doesn't have any meaning of its own to contribute.
It does it by having a noun feature, an N feature attached to it, usually from its associate, the real subject. In there is a man, the features of man covertly move up and attach to there, wiping out that meaningless D.
So there is like a vampire. It needs to feed on a real noun to survive.
That's a little dramatic, but it's accurate. It needs a partner.
Okay, so there needs a partner. Why can't it find one in the object position? Why can't we put there in the outer spec of the verb and have the subject help it out?
Okay, so imagine we try that. We put there in the outer spec of the light verb, the object position. To save there, the subject, which is sitting right next to it in the inner spec, would have to donate its noun feature.
Sounds doable. They're neighbors. They're equidistant.
But you have to remember the rules of movement. The subject has its own job to do. It has to move up to tense to check its own case. And when it moves, it leaves a trace.
A ghost of itself.
Right. And the text says traces are invisible for this kind of operation. A trace can't donate features to save there.
Ah, so the subject leaves before it can help out.
Essentially, yes. Or you can look at it the other way. If the subject does stay to help there, it basically merges with it. Its own features get corrupted, and then it can't move to tense later.
It's a catch-22.
Exactly. So there, in the object position, is doomed. It's a lonely ghost that can never be redeemed.
And isn't there an economy principle here, too? The system hates doing extra work.
Yes. The system is minimalist, remember. You can only add a strong feature, like the one that creates that object slot, if doing so has an actual effect on the output.
On the sound or the meaning?
Right. And putting there in the object position has no effect. It doesn't change the sound in any necessary way, and it adds zero meaning because there has no meaning. So the system just looks at that and says, that's inefficient, forbidden.
Ruthless efficiency. If you don't do real work, you don't get a slot.
Exactly.
Now, speaking of piling things up, we have to talk about Icelandic, because every time we think we have a nice, clean rule in English, Icelandic shows up and says, hold my beer.
Icelandic is always the ultimate test case for these theories. It just pushes every boundary.
We're talking about multiple subject constructions, or MSCs. Icelandic allows sentences where you have the expletive, the subject, and the object all lined up at the top.
Yes, the transitive expletive construction. You get there, then you get the subject and the object. It's very crowded up there.
In the old system, we would say, oh, well, that's AGRS and tense working together. 2 nodes, 2 slots. Easy. But we just killed AGRS. So how does Icelandic do this with only tense?
By doubling down on tense, the text proposes that tense itself can be strong in a very specific way.
So this comes back to that multiple specifier idea. Just like the light verb could have an outer spec, tense can too.
Exactly. The parameter, the little switch you flip for a given language is, does your tense node allow multiple specifiers? Is it a table for one, or can it host a party?
And in English, it's a table for one.
Right. But in Icelandic, tense is a party host. And this connects to that great linguistic term, procrastinate.
I love that term. It makes me feel seen. But what does it mean in syntax?
In syntax, procrastinate is the principle that says don't move anything overtly unless you absolutely have to. Moving things so you can hear them is expensive. Moving them secretly in your head later on is cheap.
So the default for language is to be lazy, to procrastinate, do the work later, invisibly.
Yes. But Icelandic seems to violate this. It moves the subject up overtly, even when there is already filling that first slot.
So Icelandic is a proactive language. It doesn't procrastinate.
Or rather, the text says Icelandic tolerates unforced violations of procrastinate. It's a parameter setting. 1, is tense strong? Yes or no? 2, does tense tolerate unforced violations of procrastinate?
If the answer to both is yes, you get these multiple subject constructions. You get there in slot 1 and a man in slot 2, both hanging off of tense.
Exactly. And the expert in the text throws out a fascinating speculation here about polysynthesis.
Oh, right. Those languages where one single verb word can contain the subject, the object, everything.
Right, like Mohawk. The text speculates that maybe those languages are just the most extreme version of this. Maybe in polysynthesis, all the arguments are extracted from the verb phrase, a maximal violation of procrastinate.
So you've got a spectrum. English is lazy, it procrastinates. Icelandic is a bit of a go-getter, it violates procrastinate once.
Yeah.
And polysynthetic languages are total workaholics. They violate it for every single piece.
It's a very distinct possibility within this framework, and it shows how this one simple mechanic, multiple specifiers, can explain a huge range of phenomena without needing an agreement node.
That's the elegance the minimalist program is always chasing. But I want to zoom out to the philosophy of this for a second. We've been deep in the mechanics, but the text keeps coming back to this phrase, poverty of interpretation.
Yes. This is the guiding principle. It sounds complicated, but it's really about the relationship between our grammar and the rest of our mind.
What does it actually mean? Poverty sounds like something is missing.
It means that the systems our language connects to the system for sound, the articulatory perceptual system, and the system for thought, the conceptual intentional system, are essentially poor.
They're simple.
They're simple. They aren't sophisticated processors. They can't handle a mess. They need clean, uniform data. Therefore, the grammar, the syntax must input simple, uniform structures.
And this dictates how things move, even when we can't hear them moving.
Exactly. We've talked about overt movement, which we can hear, but there's also covert movement, where just features move invisibly. The text argues that because the interface is poor, the end result of covert movement has to look exactly the same as overt movement.
So the final structure, the logical form, or LF, has to look the same, whether you move the whole word or just a tiny feature.
Yes, that's why the text insists that when features move secretly, they have to attach to the very top of the head to what's called 6 max. They can't hide deep inside. This ensures the final shape of the sentence is consistent across all languages.
So whether it's Japanese or English, deep down, the logical structure looks identical because the interface demands that simplicity.
Uniformity is the goal, and if the interface is simple, the syntax must be economical. It's a powerful idea.
It's incredible to think our brains are built on this less is more principle. So let's bring this all back home. We started this deep dive with one mission: see if we could get rid of agreement.
And I think the verdict from this source material is a resounding yes.
We've shifted from a system cluttered with specific boxes. Here's the box for subject agreement, here's the one for object agreement, to a much leaner system.
A system of forces, of magnetic fields. We just have verbs and tense. They can have strong features. And those features create slots, these outer specs, but only when they are absolutely necessary.
It feels like we went from a pre-planned housing development, where every house is built the same, to a dynamic system where rooms are added really when someone actually needs to move in.
That's a perfect way to put it. And the big implication is that the minimalist program is finally living up to its name. We're reducing the inventory of grammar to only elements that have semantic necessity. If it doesn't mean anything, it shouldn't be there.
Which begs the question, if agra is gone, what else is on the chopping block? If we start pulling this thread, what else unravels?
Well, the text leaves us with a final, very provocative thought about quantifier raising.
QR, the logical operation, the thing that lets us understand the ambiguity in every boy loves some girl.
Right. Complex logical scope. We usually think of that as a heavy-duty, distinct operation. But the text suggests, what if even QR is just a feature?
Just another feature attaching to a head, like the object checking its case.
Exactly. Driven by the need for a distinct interpretation. If agreement, which seemed so fundamental, turns out to be an illusion, then maybe quantifier raising is also just a side effect of these basic feature mechanics. It really forces you to ask what other standard parts of grammar might just be mirages.
It's a little like realizing the solid ground you're standing on is really just a web of invisible forces holding atoms together.
Precisely.
So next time you're listening to a sentence or speaking one, try to look past the words. Don't see the rigid boxes of a diagram. Try to see the invisible magnetic forces, the features pulling words into outer specs, satisfying requirements, and then vanishing. It's a much more electric view of how language works.
And much more economical.
Always. Thanks for diving deep with us today.
And a pleasure.
We'll catch you on the next one.